This week we're going to talk about communication, and first we're going to talk about how our dogs communicate to us, and then we're going to talk about how we communicate to our dogs. Humans and canines have very different forms of communication. So, how do our dogs communicate to us? And they communicate to us through body language. It's I really find it fun to look at different dog body language and read it. And as you get better at it, you notice it more and more. Um, so I'm going to let you pause for a second and look at these pictures. And when you're ready, come back and we will talk about it. Okay. It's really easy to tell the very happy or the very defensive or scared dogs. I think all of us can recognize that. And what I would love for you to get used to is recognizing the more subtle, maybe a little submissive. If you look at the anxious or stressed, sometimes that's hard to notice. One other thing I really would like to point out is the submissive, happy, I'm not a threat dog. That could be enough of a submissive behavior. It can become submissive, fearful, and if you bend down, I'm going to be scared enough to bite your hand. So be careful with that position. It often means happy, but it doesn't always. So what are we communicating to our dogs? And when we're talking about training and giving a dog a cue, this is a hierarchy. Motion is what your dog is going to pay most attention to. If you turn around and run, your dog is going to pay attention to your body. Body position, what direction are we facing? The dog is most likely going to orient the way our body is facing. People in agility use this all the time. Dogs pay attention to our eyes. What are our eyes telling them? Our hands and arms, that's part of the body. But if we give a hand signal, it's way more salient than voice, which is last. So if we're running around and we say sit calmly, our dog may not pay attention to that voice unless we've trained them to do that. We also communicate to dogs through facial expression and body language. They will pay attention to that first. So if we're saying good dog, but we're really frowning at them, they're going to believe the frown rather than the good dog. Tone of voice. Are you using a happy voice? Are you yelling? What are you doing? Dogs are going to pay attention to that. And of course, dogs absorb emotional energy. I think we realize that. They're not great at translating English, highly sensitive to our emotional energy. I think they are way more sensitive to our emotional energy than we are to theirs. There's a dog training saying your energy flows down the leash. That happens a lot with reactive dogs. Owners get nervous, dogs get nervous, owners get more nervous, dogs get more nervous, and then all of a sudden you have a dog barking and lunging at the end of the leash. Breathe. If you are trying to calm your dog, just take a few deep breaths, and it's really quite amazing how well that works. You may have the opposite problem, which I often have, is that I'm trying to raise my dog's energy level, and so I have to be silly and bouncy and upbeat to get her energy level up. So how can we tell what communication our dogs are receiving, I guess is how I would say it. And these are called calming signals, and these are signals that dogs give one another and give to humans that say either I'm a little bit nervous or I'm trying to keep you from being a little bit nervous. So I'm either calming myself or I'm trying to calm another dog. And a lot of these behaviors are behaviors that are normal but out of context. The nose licking, the paw lift, sitting down, lying down, yawning, sniffing, shaking off, scratching. Those are all things that the dog is doing out of context. So let's take shaking off. My dog is not wet, but it's shaking a little bit. And that's kind of, oh, that was weird. Oh, it's okay, calm down. Scratching might be, I'm not quite sure what to do. I'm a little nervous in this situation, so I'm going to scratch. Sniffing the ground happens a lot. If you have a dog that sniffs the ground a lot during a training session, it might show you that they're anxious. If it's a bloodhound, they might be sniffing. My dog will lie down to show that she's a little anxious. She lies down a lot when she plays with other dogs. Every couple of minutes, she's lying down. She's saying, slow down, I'm nervous, let's calm this down. If she lies down in the middle of training, she's letting me know I'm a little confused and it's making me anxious. So just pay attention to these different calming signals. So it's easy to teach our dogs to sit and wait for their dinner. And that's because we practice it exactly the same way every day, twice a day, as long as we have the dog. So they know that. But to communicate while training, we need to think a little bit more about it. So the first thing we have to do is pre-plan. What do you want your dog to do? What does the behavior look like? How are you going to communicate it? And then how are you going to reinforce it? You need to have all of this planned before you start. And then you're going to teach it as you planned. And that can be the hard part for me. I tend to get sidetracked. I'm always working on that to become a better trainer. You're going to assess your dog after you have taught the skill. Is your dog showing confidence, confusion? Are they motivated? And again, if you go back to those calming signals, if your dog is showing a lot of calming signals, it's very, very likely that your dog is confused. If your dog is raring to go, it's likely they feel confident about it. And every dog is going to be different here. You're going to go back to your assessment and make any adjustments that you need to make. You're going to be consistent. You're going to train it the same way every time. And as you add difficulty, you're going to keep that communication clear by adding that difficulty very gradually and keeping in the consistency from before. And we're going to use an example of coming when called. So pre-plan, what do we want it to look like? I want my dog to come to me and receive a treat by my knee. And coming when called, this can really, really be a bugaboo. Some people, when they say come when called, they mean, just come toward me a little ways, and that's fine. Some people mean come in front of me and sit. Some people mean run past me, or the dog thinks they mean run past me. So you really want to be like, what do I want this to mean? What do I want it to mean every time my dog comes? And for me, receive a treat by my knee is going to keep the dog coming up close enough to me every time so that I can grab the collar. So how am I going to communicate my instructions? How am I going to teach this? I'm going to say her name to get her attention. When she orients toward me, I'm going to say come in an enthusiastic tone of voice. I'm planning my tone of voice. I'm planning my my body motion by clapping my hands. If she hesitates, I'm going to use motion. I'm going to drop to the knees, clap my hands on the ground. And how am I going to reinforce that behavior? When she gets to me, I'm going to praise with an excited voice while giving half of a stick of string cheese, broken into 5 treats, and delivered at my knee. So I'm really thinking about what I want when she gets there. I want her at my knee. I want her to hang out for a little bit, and I want her to feel like she did the right thing. So here's a picture of one of my students following every one of these pieces of advice with recall. Look at the motion and the excitement. She's turned it into a game, and look how happy that little guy is to come to her. So this week, think about communication with your dog. Pay attention to what you're saying, what your dog is saying. If you have time, you can find some videos on YouTube that show body language of dogs. And of course, have fun.